greatest fights of all time, in every fight that's ever happened. But you look at those two separately, and you know, it wasn't their night tonight, and it wasn't an exciting.
Thought I would win against Anthony, but here I am with a broken jaw, learning the hard way. I'll heal.
What just happened? What you just saw was, yes, Jake Paul finding out there's levels to this game. Yes, Anthony Joshua not having the greatest performance of all time, but him doing exactly what he had to do, what he needed to do for boxing, what he needed to do for himself.
Social media lost its mind the second Jake Paul crashed to the mat in his long-whispered showdown with Anthony Joshua. Suddenly, every spotlight snapped straight toward Dana White. The UFC chief, who has spent years loudly mocking Paul as a fake-made boxer, never had to lift a finger himself. His response spoke volumes, from smug grins to sharp, no-filter remarks. White looked completely validated as true heavyweight force smashed YouTube fantasy, flipping Jake Paul's swagger into a savage reality lesson witnessed by millions worldwide.
And that calf kick, you know, the whole first round, he couldn't have had a better first round, and then he got caught.
Do you feel it's one of those things where, like, he got caught, or is it one of those things where Hangman age might be catching up to him, he might be slowing down? Which one do you think it could be?
Ever since Anthony Joshua violently halted Jake Paul in round 6 of their heavyweight spectacle, shipping Paul to the hospital with a shattered jaw and several fractures, the fight world has not gone quiet. The damage was serious enough that Paul required surgery involving titanium plates and tooth removal after the bout.
For my own credibility, I've got to knock you out, but I've got to try and knock you out where I'm not hurting you as much as what I could if I unleashed. Yeah. And with the punch you said that you landed, it's not his best punch, it's his most powerful punch, right? Yeah. And he's shattered his jaw in 2 places, right? So Anthony Joshua gets his 70 million, whatever it is. But I think he's sitting there thinking, thank God for that. Thank God. On a human level, I've come out, all right, I've sort of, not reputation, but I haven't hurt him as bad as what I could have.
There should be an awful amount of people breathing a massive sigh of relief. Anybody that put that fight together, athletic commissions, like you said.
It wasn't a fight.
No, it wasn't at all. Like you said, it was a prize fight. It was an event. If Anthony damages him, he's got to live with that for the rest of his life.
Absolutely.
That's a lot of stress to deal with, you know what I mean? So I'm sure he's bleeding in the side of relief. The team that have put him in there, that have negotiated that for him, but the authorities that put that on and commissioned it as a proper boxing match, I've no doubt.
Does that go on his...
Yeah, it's a professional boxing match.
Do you know what? If I was Anthony Joshua, I would be saying, I don't want that on my record. But for the credibility of them putting the fight on, they would have said to him, no, we've got to say this, it's been commissioned, it's going to be a proper fight. And I found it, I love my boxing, but I just find the whole thing really, really unedifying. You said about get followers. You mentioned Tommy Fury. Tommy Fury is nowhere near his level of getting like a British title fight or whatever. Nowhere near. So it's basically he's like...
Beat Jake Paul.
Well, oh yeah, sorry, yeah, beat Jake Paul. But so
but what I'm saying is that's 100. I stand by that, and I think Tommy would admit that. You know what I mean? To become a British champion is a very prestigious thing to do, and I think he would struggle to do that.
But I think when I was reading, he got 5.6 or...
Scans and x-rays revealed that his jaw lay shattered in 2 separate spots. A serious injury frequently labeled as a double fracture. After the fight, Paul drove himself to a hospital seeking care for the damage where doctors confirmed everything officially there. Recovery from the injury was expected to last roughly 4 to 6 weeks, and Paul rushed to social media sharing images of the scans, confirming fractures, and thanking fans for their support during recovery period online. UFC President Dana White had long dismissed the matchup as a terrible idea, arguing from the start that Paul was beyond his depth against a decorated former heavyweight champion, and many viewed Anthony Joshua's knockout as proving that viewpoint clearly. White even joked that the fight's appeal came from fans desperate to see Paul eventually get stopped, reinforcing his long-held skepticism about Paul's viability at the highest levels of boxing competition.
Oh, Jesus. That's a fucking bad idea. That's a bad idea. But let me tell you what. A lot of people watch that one.
Will you watch it?
Sure. You know what everybody's tuning in for on that one. I think everybody's going to...
Pundits are suddenly labeling the full build-up and fallout a Tom and Jerry circus, claiming the result was unavoidable from the instant the bout was revealed. According to multiple boxing voices, Jake Paul spent months acting as a noisy, cartoon-like instigator, while Anthony Joshua remained quiet, calculated, and patient, just like a hunter waiting on the punchline. Once the bells sounded, the joke ended instantly. Joshua's power, timing, and ring IQ utterly overwhelmed Paul, producing a knockout that shocked casual viewers, but never serious analysts.
Oh man, great performance by Jake, brother.
Come on, bro. He's a fucking legend for that. He has such big balls getting in the ring with that guy, dude. Josh was a monster. He stayed in it the whole time, and I'm really proud of Jake, dude. All my respect to him, bro. Whatever outcome. I mean, dude, he went 6.5 rounds with Anthony Joshua, one of the best in the world. So I got nothing but respect.
And got up like 2 times.
No, sick.
Talk about that. I mean, there's been other heavyweights that have felt that right hand who haven't got up.
Nagano, so many people, bro. They're over him, right? Jake's got a tough chin, dude. I think he does whatever he wants after this. He just has such big balls, dude. He had to keep moving. That was the only strategy. People are gonna say he ran around the ring. They don't know. They don't understand fucking boxing.
He showed a ton of heart, right? What's next for Jake Paul?
Veteran trainer Teddy Atlas stunned plenty of boxing followers by sketching a potential route for Jake Paul to topple Anthony Joshua, even though it sounds unrealistic on paper. Atlas stressed that styles decide fights, arguing Paul might use his youth, quicker feet, and motion to annoy Joshua, particularly if Joshua's timing and mindset are dull after extended layoffs tied to past defeats. Atlas explained Paul could run, circle laterally, and steal moments with a sudden right hand whenever Joshua overreaches, adding that slipping rounds and keeping Joshua unsettled might be enough to swing an 8-round fight. It would not look pretty, but Atlas believes a cautious, evasive blueprint is Paul's clearest chance at a shocking win ever.
Talk about news that broke out, and it's someone that you've always shown respect to, and I've asked you these questions before about Jake Paul. We had a surprise announcement just the other day about him and Anthony Joshua. What was your reaction when you saw that announcement? It shocked a lot of people in boxing. What did you make of that, or what do you make?
Jake hasn't made too many mistakes so far, so it got my attention. It got Teddy's attention. He's been growing. He's been growing in the ring. He's been growing outside the ring. He's been growing in confidence. I think that in the Canelo situation, that didn't happen. He was ready to do that. I think if anything else, if nothing else, he's showing you that he truly is believing in himself. And that, you know, he's been a work in progress. He still is. And he's showing you, he's putting his money where his mouth is. Everyone's calling for him to do this, to do that. And, you know, he's always had the advantage with guys that weren't real fighters. They were fighters, they were older fighters, they were MMA fighters, they were this, they were that. They were smaller, they were older. Now he's taking a guy that's bigger, older, but bigger. A real, can't debate if he's a fighter. 2-time heavyweight champ. Coming off, but he's a smart son of a gun. He's a gutsy son of a... I always stood up for him because everyone was saying he was hurting the sport. He wasn't hurting the sport. In some ways, he was bringing interest in a different way to the sport. But you know...
The fight, officially branded as Judgment Day, was booked for 8 3-minute rounds in the heavyweight division, with Anthony Joshua entering as a clear favorite thanks to superior experience, 6 feet 6 inches height, and a major size edge over Jake Paul, who weighed around 216 pounds compared to Joshua's 243 pounds. After a few cautious opening rounds, Joshua started asserting control, flooring Paul multiple times in the 5th before sealing it with a vicious knockout early in the 6th at 131, unleashing a crushing right hand that dumped Paul on the canvas and forced the referee to halt the fight.
Anthony Joshua. Paul was sturdy for the first couple of rounds, but as the fight went on, the more experienced Joshua began to take control. After continuously connecting in the 5th round, it was only a matter of time before it was over. In the 6th, Joshua went on to knock out Paul with a big right hand. Joshua improved his career record to 29-4 now. Paul loses for the 2nd time in his career to go along with 12.
Former UFC champion Daniel Cormier, who had openly voiced doubt before the fight, basically said there was never a real world where Jake Paul could defeat Joshua, while admitting Paul's toughness helped him survive into the later rounds. Cormier explained that Anthony Joshua essentially carried Jake Paul to the 6th round and that the bout was always destined to finish with a punch because Paul simply was not on Joshua's level. He added that Joshua eventually landed the clean fight-ending right hand because it was unavoidable due to the gap in skill and power, even though Paul showed heart by lasting several rounds before the knockout.
Some people believe in fairy tales. Whoever believed that Jake Paul was going to win. That was an absolute fairy tale. I've got a friend in a group message that said, I just put $20 on Jake Paul to win. I was like, bro, you just wasted your money. There was never a world in which Jake Paul was going to beat Anthony Joshua. It was always a matter of how the fight would end. So I watched all the pundits talking about the fight. Even Rosendo, my boxing coach, I was like, does Anthony Joshua represent boxing? Everybody from that world felt like Anthony Joshua was representing boxing. And as the fight started to go on, first off, he was representing boxing, so they wanted him to get the job done. All right, first and foremost. You can't lose to a guy that's perceived to be a YouTuber, even though today, Jake Paul is more boxer than YouTuber. I've said this time and time again. When you have resources, when you can spend $1 million a year on training camps, housing, food, coaches, this is not recreational anymore. He's a boxer. He's just not a boxer at that level. I ran into his brother in New York City, and I said to Logan, what parameters are in place, Logan? What safeguards do they have to make sure that Anthony Joshua doesn't hurt your brother? He said there are none. He goes, they're going to just straight fight. So in that regard, you got to give credit.
Logan Paul ignited controversy after the bout by insisting his brother Jake might have captured as many as 4 rounds before the knockout. Speaking emotionally afterward, Logan claimed Jake stayed competitive early, relying on movement and defense to limit damage, while Anthony Joshua needed time to settle into rhythm. Although most official scorecards and analysts strongly disagreed, Logan maintained fans were downplaying how well Jake survived and stole moments during the opening half of the fight.
Logan, what's up, man? What's your reaction to it?
I'm just so proud of him. My mom has me.
Your brother fought his ass off, man.
Yeah,
I mean, other heavyweights have taken that right hand and only took one.
I'm just so proud of him. That was incredible. In my view, that was a victory on all fronts.
Right.
Like, minus the actual victory, obviously, of course, but bro, like, no one expected him to last 6 rounds with AJ. In my opinion, he won 4 of them. People will argue that he at least won 3. No one expected him to last that long. Rolled his ankle, broke his jaw, still fucking fighting, man. Like, that's toughness. You know, most people wouldn't have the balls ever to step in a boxing ring in their life. He stepped in a boxing ring with one of the baddest men on the planet, who's 40 pounds heavier than him and 6 inches taller. That's insane. He's one of the most skilled fighters on the planet. My brother, as a fucking YouTuber, went 6 rounds with him in a fight with a broken jaw and rolled ankle. I'm so proud of him. That was just unbelievable.
I saw you talking crap to AJ at one
Bro,
point.
I'm trying to get his head. I think I pissed him off. I was just saying fucking shit. I love AJ.
Yeah.
But bro,
I saw you going down the fight game.
I was talking so much. But I just pissed him off.
Former world champion Carl Froch didn't mince words about the Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua fight, claiming bouts like this have shoved boxing straight into what he calls clown world. Froch had earlier blasted Joshua's decision to meet a YouTube star rather than elite opponents, arguing it hurts the sport and even dents Joshua's legacy, saying that battling social media figures doesn't represent the real competitive standard demanded of top heavyweights. Although he never used the exact line, this fight was a disgrace. Directly, Froch's overall tone made it obvious he views celebrity crossover fights as damaging to boxing's credibility and long-standing tradition and integrity overall today.
Rounds got Jake Paul out of there. Dropped him. I think he got stopped on his feet, counted out, knocked out, whatever, however you want to call it. It wasn't a bad knockout. It wasn't an El Sparko. He wasn't rendered unconscious, but he got done. He got it on the chin. He went over. He didn't beat the count. He was sort of up on his feet. But if I'm honest, the whole fight was terrible, wasn't it? It was just so bad. It was just shit, wasn't it? A proper bad fight for AJ. And let me start with AJ. AJ was following him around the ring a little bit, sort of pouring with the jab, putting the jab on the shoulder of Jake Paul, sort of putting him in the corner and not really pulling the trigger on the right hand. He didn't seem to be motivated to go in there and just smash Jake Paul into oblivion in the first 1 or 2 rounds, which I think he could have done. But he's been out the ring 15 months, a bit slow on his feet, a bit ring rust maybe, and it's hard. When I used to spar novice amateurs, even when I was a world champion pro, if you're not motivated, sometimes you can have a couple of bad rounds and you're sort of looking at your opponent and a jab hits you or right hand hits you. And I think AJ was in a bit of a daze early on, just walking him around, touching the jab on his shoulder, not really pulling the trigger on the right hand. Didn't look like he got out of first gear. Jake Paul was just on pure survival mode from round 1 right through to round 6. I don't know if he's got a moral victory going 6 rounds. Maybe he has. People might give him credit for going 6 rounds. But he got in there and just survived. He just went in there and ran like a chicken from round 1 right through to round 6 when he got splattered. And it's like, it's just, you can't really justify what he's done, because this is supposed to be a professional sanctioned boxing match. And I think it brings the integrity of the sport down when somebody like AJ, is a 2-time world champion, can't get in there and just completely dismiss somebody like Jake Paul, who I've said for...
Veteran boxing analyst Gareth A. Davies voiced major alarm over the safety consequences tied to this fight. He pointed to the massive weight gap and the uneven experience between the fighters, arguing the matchup pushed the boundaries of what should be allowed inside a professional ring. Davies warned that a full-force contest was dangerous, especially if Joshua landed clean, fight-altering shots early. From his view, while the idea of a social media star challenging an established heavyweight grabs attention, the physical dangers make it a deeply questionable venture. Figures like Davies urge regulators and promoters to seriously reassess safety protocols, as the fallout from a misjudged matchup could be severe for both men involved. Despite Anthony Joshua knocking out Jake Paul in the 6th round and breaking his jaw, many respected voices in combat sports still praised Paul's heart, courage, and showing.
Doing it. I'm not going to be with a guy I know what subjects we're going over. So, as I am with you, there is a danger in this fight. The odds are, Joshua's 1-12, obviously. Jake Paul is 6-1, yeah, to win this fight in a 2-horse race, in which this is a guy who lost to Tommy Fury, Tyson Fury's brother, in an 8-round fight, who, for me, I wrote that it would damage his legacy a week ago. It will damage his legacy for several reasons. If the Deontay Wilder fight never emerges, which it looks like it isn't, I've been calling for that fight for ages. If those two got in a ring together, it's still a massive fight. It's a dangerous fight to sanction, in my view. It sets the wrong precedent. It is 10-ounce gloves. It is a boxing match. It's not an exhibition. This isn't a 58-year-old Mike Tyson. This is one of the most dangerous finishers in the world, who is probably 5 levels above Jake Paul and a weight division above him. I think it's irresponsible to let those two in a ring together in a proper boxing match. That's my view. It doesn't damage his bank balance, but if he earns $70 million for this, are we...
MMA legend Anderson Silva insisted fans should respect Jake Paul for climbing into the ring with a seasoned former heavyweight champion and for battling through adversity, highlighting Paul's growth and raw courage. Many fans and commentators complained that constant clinching and roughhouse tactics sucked energy out of the Anthony Joshua versus Jake Paul fight, leaving it far less entertaining than promised. Instead of sharp back-and-forth boxing, large portions of the early rounds dissolved into holding, grappling, and sloppy exchanges that dragged the tempo down and irritated viewers badly. The referee even stepped in mid-bout, warning both fighters to obey the rules because the action had stalled and wasn't what paying fans expected. Critics argued Paul's repeated grabbing and Joshua's failure to stay aggressively engaged made the contest feel choppy, filled with too many pauses rather than clean, skillful boxing, ultimately reducing the overall entertainment value overall for viewers.
By the way, Anthony Joshua put on a show in Miami, taking on Jake Paul in a much-anticipated heavyweight bout, and in the end it was AJ who delivered exactly what we wanted in the end. He stopped Paul in the 6th round to get the victory. I'm just seeing pictures online just now of Jake Paul with a broken jaw. The guy's crazy. He's sticking his tongue out, blood everywhere. He's playing up to the cameras. He's quite the showman. Our very own showman with us this morning out there in Miami is TalkSport's Gareth A. Davies. Good morning, Gareth.
Hi, Gareth.
Good morning, Siobhan. Good morning, Tony. A very dramatic night here.
Yeah.
Oscar.
Gareth, I've got to ask you, because obviously he'll be criticised, I think, for sort of running around the ring in the first few rounds. But, boy, I've got to say, this Jake Paul is game as anybody I've seen.
He is very, very bold and very brash and very brave. And he did extraordinarily well to take Anthony Joshua 6 rounds tonight. Yes, he ran around, he was elusive, but then he clinched and I think he landed about 4 or 5 punches. Arguably, he might have won the first round and another round in there. So he did a brilliant job for his own resume, for his own career. And as you say, he's in hospital right now. He's posting the pictures already on Instagram. The scars of battle the wounds of battle, the broken jaw, his teeth are rearranged a little bit. He gave it his all, but he wasn't good enough. What happened, we knew that was going to happen. The gulf in class and experience was extraordinary. And, I've just been with Anthony Joshua, and he said he was actually quite surprised about how elusive Jake was, and he just decided, you know what, I'm going to take my time here and chop.
So what are your thoughts on Jake Paul facing Anthony Joshua? Was this a fair fight, a mismatch, or a defining chapter in combat sports? Sound off with your take below.